Initially, I perceived marriage to be about exertion, presence, and daily reaffirmation of my partner's choice, regardless of hardships or mundanity. I assumed we were doing just that. However, her tranquil gaze and altered demeanor delivered a sentence that turned everything upside down. "I don't have to make you happy." Initially, I chuckled, suspecting a jest. Yet, she remained serious, without the slightest hint of amusement or softening, suggesting she was not joking. Our disagreement had revolved around a minor matter, like most couples, stemming from her recent emotional detachment and lack of acknowledgement upon my return from work. I conveyed my feelings of missing her and our dwindling connection. Her retort, brisk, piercing, definitive: "I don't have to make you happy." This statement carried an intensity that left the room startlingly silent. I remained stationary, clutching the kitchen counter edge, struggling to comprehend her words. "Then, what exactly is our purpose?" I inquired softly, my voice less forceful than intended. She let out a weary sigh, touching her forehead as if burdened by me. "You seem to expect me to amuse you or attend to your needs constantly. I have my own life, my own contentment to manage." "Your contentment? That's your issue, not mine." The way she uttered it, so flippant, so decisive, constricted something in my chest. I felt an urge to debate. I wanted to declare that's not how marriage operates. We're meant to prioritize each other, offer support. It's not merely about your contentment or my contentment. It's about ours. But I held my peace, for in that instant I recognized something. I recognized that I was the only one striving, the only one endeavoring for us. And she regarded me as an annoyance. I can't fathom why it affected me so profoundly that evening. Dear friends, if you enjoy this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. Perhaps it was due to the fact that she verbalized it for the first time. In reality, indications of change had been present for months. The subtle disregards accumulating into a significant issue, the eye rolls at my affectionate attempts, the scarcity of replies to my messages during daylight hours, but constant social media activity, her lack of inquiry about my day, and seemingly indifferent attitude towards my emotional state, happy, sad, or overwhelmed with stress. I had convinced myself it was just a difficult phase, that we would eventually reconcile. However, now she expressed a lack of responsibility for my happiness. This led me to question, did she ever hold such responsibility? Reflecting on the past, I recalled numerous actions undertaken not out of obligation, but desire, leaving morning notes expressing love, telling her how much I cherished her. Pondering over minor details like her preferred treats, coffee preferences, and saying drive safely before departures. Arranging surprise dates despite her seeming indifference. Setting aside personal worries to listen to hers to ensure she felt heard, understood, valued. When was the last time I reciprocated such acts? I couldn't recollect. Not because she hadn't done it, but because it had been so long since then. That night, following her cold rejection, I lay in bed, gazing at the ceiling. She was turned away, engrossed in her phone, unaffected by the fact that she had just shattered something within me. She had told me the truth. She felt no responsibility for my happiness. So why had I invested so much effort into ensuring hers? I switched sides, watching the gentle light from her screen illuminate her face. She was oblivious to my presence, indifferent. That's when I decided my course of action. I wouldn't argue with her any longer. I wouldn't plead for attention, affection, or even basic respect. I wouldn't persist in a battle for someone who had already withdrawn. I wouldn't prioritize her joy. If mine wasn't important to her that night, something within me changed. If she genuinely thought it wasn't her duty to ensure my happiness, then perhaps it was time for her to feel the effects of no longer having my happiness as a priority. I didn't declare a formal statement. I didn't say, "Since you don't value my happiness, I'll stop valuing yours." That would have been too straightforward for her, too evident. Instead, I wanted her to sense it. I desired for her to encounter directly what it was like when the person who had spent years making her life simpler, joyful, and comfortable simply ceased to make an effort. The initial act I ceased was keeping tabs on her well-being. It was a routine for me, sending frequent messages during the day, checking on her feelings, work progress, and meals. But that changed after she told me she didn't need to ensure my happiness. On the following morning, I left for work without uttering a word no, have a good day, or drive safely. I merely picked up my keys, exited the house, and departed. At work, my phone signaled an arrival message from her. "Did you leave already?" I glanced at the screen, then secured my phone. No reply was given. Previously, I took care of small household tasks for enjoyment, rather than obligation, starting the coffee maker before she awoke, ensuring fresh groceries, and cleaning dishes in the sink she always left behind. However, if my happiness wasn't her concern, hers certainly wasn't mine either. That evening, upon returning home, she discovered the sink still filled with leftover dishes from the previous night. On the couch, I idly scrolled through my phone, oblivious to the clutter around me. She deposited her bag and fixated on the kitchen. Then, her gaze shifted to me. "Seriously," she mumbled under her breath. I barely acknowledged her presence. "The dishes, you didn't clean them." I shrugged nonchalantly, assuming you'd take care of it. For a moment, she seemed dumbfounded, unable to believe what she was hearing. I could see the growing frustration in her expression, but she maintained her composure. Without uttering another word, she began washing the dishes. For the first time in years, I allowed her to do so. At first, she believed it was just a temporary bad mood, a passing phase, but it wasn't. Day after day, I distanced myself. I stopped initiating conversations, ignored her feelings, and avoided physical contact when we were together in bed. And gradually, she began to notice the change. One evening, around a week into my withdrawal, she finally voiced her concerns. During dinner, as we both opted for takeout instead of cooking, she put down her fork and commented, "You seem strange lately." I arched an eyebrow in query. "In what way?" she replied. "You're detached. Cold. You hardly communicate with me anymore." After taking a sip from my drink, I responded. It suddenly struck me. Her expression turned grave. "What is it?" I sat back in my chair, keeping eye contact, conveying that my personal happiness was not her concern. The instant the words escaped, I saw understanding flash across her eyes, recalling her previous statement. She squirmed in her seat, manifesting discomfort. "That's not what you meant." "Is that true?" I interrupted. "Absolutely," she said, with a hint of defensiveness. "But you don't need to behave this way," she finally added, whispering now. "You're overreacting." I chuckled lightly. "Overreacting? No. I'm merely learning from you." For the first time, she had no retort ready. Instead of eating, she moved her food around on the plate, no longer feeling hungry. Pretending everything was fine, yet I sensed her discomfort. She escalated text messages to check-ins, responding only when convenient for me. She awaited my initiative for plans, date nights, and weekends outings, but remained passive. She attempted to mend things indirectly, suggesting watching a movie together or cooking dinner. However, I wasn't cooperating. If she thought my response would be immediate due to her efforts, she was mistaken. For years, I had put in the effort while her actions suggested complacency. Now, it was her turn to reciprocate. One evening, I unintentionally overheard her conversation with her best friend on the phone. She expressed her confusion, saying, "I can't figure him out. It's like he doesn't care anymore." The irony almost caused me amusement. Her bewilderment and aggravation were evident, but I was not surprised. For the first time in a while, I felt mentally clear. I wasn't vengeful, not out to hurt her. I was merely mirroring her demeanor. She said she didn't need to make me content. Now, she was witnessing the reality of that statement. The peculiarity about relationships is that you don't discern the subtle nuances, the patterns, the customs, until they vanish, and she was experiencing it. At first, she dismissed my detachment as mere moodiness on my part. But now, she's observing me. I see it in her furtive glances when she believes I'm not watching, in her hesitation before speaking, testing the waters, unsure of my reaction. I wasn't malicious, I wasn't cruel. I merely stopped caring, or at least, I stopped expressing that I cared. I had spent decades prioritizing her happiness. decades ensuring she felt cherished, secure, and valued, and she took it for granted. So now, one evening after work, he experienced the change in their relationship when his well-being ceased to be her primary concern. She disliked this shift. The first significant break occurred when he returned home. Typically, she barely acknowledged him, only a brief nod or hey, while engrossed in her phone. But that night was different. She was anticipating his arrival. Hey, she greeted him immediately upon entering, inquiring about work. He almost chuckled. For years she had shown little interest and hadn't asked about his day. Now, suddenly, it seemed to matter. He shrugged, moving past her to set down his bag. Fine, he could sense her staring at him, waiting for him to initiate conversation. However, he remained silent. She wanted him to resume old patterns and make it convenient for her, but he had chosen not to play that game anymore. A few days later, he went out with colleagues for drinks after work without informing her first, unwilling to seek approval. Why should he? She didn't believe we had any obligations towards each other. Thus, why should I continue making extra efforts to keep her informed? At approximately 9 p.m., I glanced at my phone to see 3 missed calls and a text from her. "Where are you?" I delayed responding for some time. "Out," was my eventual reply. She called again after that. This time, I answered. "Hi," I said, sipping my drink. "Is everything okay?" She repeated the question. "I already told you," I said casually. "I'm out." She sighed audibly, expressing frustration. "So when are you coming back home?" I replied with a smirk. "I don't know." The unimportance of it all seemed to cross my mind. There was silence on the other end, as if she were mentally processing something. Before she could ask anything further, I ended the call, and for the first time in a long while, I felt liberated. However, the following morning, things took a turn. For the first time in months, perhaps even years, she prepared breakfast not just for herself, but for both of us. Upon entering the kitchen, I found a plate with eggs and toast waiting for me. She was by the stove, trying to appear nonchalant. Seemed like she was preparing something for you before work. I found myself leaning against the counter, gazing at the plate. "Why?" I inquired, surprised, caught off guard. "What do you mean? Why? You've never shown interest before." She looked troubled. "That's not accurate." I gave her a questioning look. "Surely, that's not true. When was the last time you did something for me without being asked?" She didn't respond. We both knew the reality. It wasn't just at home. A change had occurred between us, and even our friends noticed. One evening, we dined out with a group, and one of her closest friends, Sarah, gave me a curious glance. "You've been quite silent tonight," she commented. I merely smiled. "I suppose I don't have much to talk about." Sarah looked at my wife, then back at me. "Is everything all right between the two of you?" Before I could respond, my wife forced a laugh. "Yes, naturally. He's been occupied with work." I observed her. She was deceiving. Deep within, she recognized something was amiss, but wasn't prepared to acknowledge it with them. Not then, and not even to herself. It was only after we returned home that evening that she burst. Once in our bedroom, she confronted me, arms crossed. "Are you intentionally hurting me?" I quizzically raised an eyebrow. "For what reason?" "You are aware of the situation," she retorted, exasperated. "Are you not?" I tilted my head in puzzlement. "Am I?" She exhaled heavily. "Your behavior has changed. You've become distant and indifferent. You no longer seem to care about anything." Moving cautiously towards her, I kept my tone even. "Do you mean?" She hesitated. "I ceased attempting to please you." Her countenance flinched at the truth reflected in my words, a mirror image of her own. Leaning ever so slightly closer, I barely more than whispered, "Does it make you feel awful, doesn't it?" For the first time, she had no response, merely standing there, staring as comprehension dawned. Because in that moment, she understood, recognized that when my feelings shifted, everything around us transformed. For the initial occasion since she uttered those words, a sense of fear enveloped her. A change had occurred within her, something I could discern clearly. For the first time in years, she was not the one dictating the terms. She had grown accustomed to my pursuit, my flexibility, adjustments, and compromises to maintain harmony. Suddenly, I wasn't engaging in games anymore. This bewilderment was gradually unfurling within her. Initially, she attempted to feign normalcy, continuing to share her polished images on social media, exhibiting camaraderie with friends, showcasing new apparel, pretending life was as usual. However, I noticed the fleeting glances towards me when she thought I wasn't watching. I observed the hesitation in her speech, the twitching of her fingers as she reached for her phone. She displayed signs of unease, because for the first time since we became a couple, she was uncertain about my thoughts and feelings. It began subtly, the unexpected displays of affection, the way she started holding my hand when we were out, as if to reaffirm our union to onlookers. Her sudden affectionate gestures towards me after months of distance, the frequent texts during the day, the questions about my well-being, dinner preferences, and expressions of longing. Are you having a good day? Do you miss me? Now, do I miss you? I pondered her messages for a while before locking my phone without replying. She didn't miss me. She missed the man who doted on her. She missed the part of me that spent countless hours ensuring her happiness, even when the effort was hardly reciprocated. She wasn't trying to mend things. She was attempting to restore equilibrium. But that version of me, he no longer existed. After several days of me barely responding to her overtures, her patience ran out. One evening, I found myself on the couch, engrossed in my phone, when she burst into the room. "Is this how we're going to keep acting?" she demanded, as if we were strangers. "We barely know each other now," I said, pushing away my phone. "Isn't that how you've been behaving lately?" Her lips parted and closed again. She recognized the truth. "I already told you," I said softly. "It's not my job to make you happy, just as yours isn't to make me so." She flinched, her words striking her. But it wasn't her hesitation that kept her quiet, but her biting her lower lip. I didn't intend it that way. I leaned back, examining her. "Then why did you say it?" she asked, breathing out and folding her arms. "I don't know," she admitted. "I was just upset. I felt like you demanded too much of me." I nodded in agreement. "And now that you demand nothing, you find it unacceptable." She stayed silent, unable to refute that, because deep within, she acknowledged the truth. She didn't want the responsibility of my happiness. It wasn't until her own happiness was no longer a concern for me that she understood what life felt like without this burden. She didn't just sense the change at home. Her associates picked up on it as well. Some of them approached her privately, inquiring if all was well between us, with one even sending a private message. "Sarah, hey, I don't intend to intrude, but is everything all right between you two?" She appeared different lately. After scrutinizing the message for a spell, I responded, "She's merely adapting to the current state of affairs. No elaboration, no lengthy discourse, just the straightforward truth." It seemed as though she had felt the increasing strain, because one evening following dinner, she broke down. "We need to mend this situation." I glanced up from my drink, arching an eyebrow. "Mend what?" Her jaw tightened. "Us." I slightly tilted my head. "You mean me. You mean the transformation I've undergone." She fidgeted uneasily in her seat, visibly uncomfortable. "I was merely going to. I don't appreciate how things are between us. I feel like I'm losing you." I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "You have already done so. You simply failed to notice until now." Her lips opened slightly, surprise flickering across her face. She hadn't anticipated my verbal confession. For long, she presumed my constant presence, my persistent efforts to help mend. But now it was her turn to strive for resolution. And me? I wasn't certain if I desired to be mended any longer. It transpired approximately a week later. She arrived home late from work, appearing exhausted and defeated. I barely acknowledged her greeting. She made her way directly to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. I assumed she merely needed solitude. Yet, then I heard weeping sounds, muted cries. For an instant, I remained motionless. This was unusual. She wasn't one to cry, not like this, not silently, alone in the night. And for the first time in weeks, A small twinge of emotion stirred within me. Yet, I didn't approach her. I didn't knock on the door. Because this was her time, her moment to comprehend, to experience what it was like when the person you relied upon, the one you thought would always be there, suddenly vanished. Even though I was only a few steps away, I knew she felt isolated. She was no longer mine in the sense she had presumed. Our bond, which she had always envisioned, had transformed in an unexpected manner. The following day, she remained silent, her eyes puffy from crying, yet she spoke not a word regarding it. Instead, she observed me intently, seeking confirmation of my continued affection in my countenance, but I provided none, at least not then. I wanted her to endure this moment, to acknowledge the burden it imposed, to grasp the implications of her actions. This wasn't about retribution or torment, it was about equilibrium. For long years, I had upheld our relationship single-handedly. Now, now it was her turn. The silence that enveloped us became oppressive. For several weeks, she had attempted to reach out, to mend what she never anticipated would shatter. However, I wasn't offering an easy path. Not out of retribution or a desire for her distress, but to make her perceive, to finally comprehend the consequences of her actions. That night, upon hearing words I never anticipated from her, I realized my mistake. She was right. The silence hung heavy, barely audible. I almost missed it. But as I turned to face her, her expression spoke volumes. Tears brimmed in her eyes, her knuckles white from gripping the fabric of her hoodie. She confessed again, her voice quivering now. I thought, I thought our happiness wasn't a priority. I thought you'd never leave. No matter what. I remained silent, taking in this defining moment. This was when she acknowledged the harm she had inflicted. Now she was fearful it was too late. I held my breath, allowing her words to permeate the space between us. Then I uncrossed my arms and leaned against the counter. And now, I inquired, keeping my tone even. Now that you've admitted your mistake, what do you anticipate from me? She swallowed hard. She confessed she was uncertain. All she wished was to rectify this situation. A humorless chuckle escaped her. Rectify? That's easier said than done, I retorted, my voice growing sharper. You spent years disregarding me, making it seem as though my well-being held no significance. Now, all of a sudden, you care. Her breath caught. I had thought you would never depart. I let out a slow sigh, shaking my head. That's the crux of the matter. Her eyebrows furrowed, tears sliding down her cheeks now. What do you mean? I fixed her with a steady gaze, my voice resolute. You didn't believe effort was necessary. You assumed I'd stay regardless, even if I was unhappy. She pressed a hand to her mouth, stifling a quiet sob. For the first time in years, I didn't feel compassion for her. I didn't feel the urge to console her, to assure her everything would be all right, because I wasn't certain it would. She reached for my hand, but I remained still. Whispering softly, she pleaded, I can't stand to lose you. I gazed at her trembling fingers, seeing in them the despair of years spent treating me as replaceable, and it made me question, did she cherish me, or was it my offerings, the attention, the assurance, the constant presence that she truly valued? It seemed to be more than the relationship she missed. It was the man who prioritized her needs above his own. That man no longer existed, and I wasn't certain if I desired to resurrect him. Now she wept. The same woman who had dismissed my suffering as my burden now implored me to remain. Yet, I was no longer the man seeking to win her affection. I was the one making the choice. Was this what I wanted? Did I want her? I released a steady breath, feeling my heart race within me. Then, I uttered the words that would alter everything. I'm not sure if I can continue like this. Her breath hitched, her entire body stiffening. You're not understanding me correctly. I maintained eye contact with her. Yes, I am serious. Her lips quivered. However, I'm here now. I want to make an effort. I emitted a cynical laugh. What transpires when you become complacent once more? When you stop striving? When it reverts to its prior state? She stiffened, because we were both aware. This wasn't about a solitary apology. This was about the person she had been for years. This was about the cycle. And now that I experienced what it felt like to prioritize myself, I became uncertain if I could return. She shook her head, increasingly desperate now. I can alter. I swear. I hesitated. Can you? I interjected. Her mouth opened, yet she didn't respond, because deep within her, she was unsure too. She wanted me to believe it. She wished to believe it herself. But some things cannot be reversed. Some things are irreparably damaged, and as I stood there, observing her disintegrate, I understood. I had already departed. Perhaps not physically, not yet, but mentally, emotionally, I had detached myself long prior to this moment. Since I'd experienced life absent her presence before, and surprisingly, I enjoyed it for a change. Audience, feel free to express your views below. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons on this channel.